Okay, beautiful.
You're good to go.
Great. Welcome everybody to this webinar about Rounded, which is co-presented by Oliver, who is here from Rounded, and me. My name is Monica Davidson, and I am the Director of Creative Plus Business. For those of you who don't know us, we are a social enterprise dedicated to educating creative practitioners about everything to do with business. That includes the admin and management of yourself as a business, whether you're a, recent graduate or a freelancer or a startup, all the way through to more experienced practitioners. We help with marketing, we help with legal stuff to an extent, and one of the big things that we focus on is helping creative practitioners to improve their financial literacy. We do this through lots of different mechanisms like webinars and workshops and one-on-one advice, but one of the reasons why we've decided to partner with Rounded for this webinar is because we're always encouraging our clients to, and our workshop participants, to investigate cloud accounting as a means to getting their financial house in order. And there are lots of different cloud accounting platforms, but we have been recommending Rounded for some time for a few reasons. One, because it's Australian, and that's one of the key reasons, but also because Rounded has a focus on freelancers and creative practitioners, which I'll obviously let Oliver talk about more. I just want to make it really clear from the get-go that Creative Plus Business doesn't receive any kind of kickbacks from this. We're not being financially rewarded in any way. We recommend Rounded because our clients have found it to be a really useful tool, and you're obviously all welcome to go and explore other options as well. That's obviously a big part of what we always encourage people to do, is to find out for themselves whether or not something is going to be worth their while. But in this particular case, we wanted to give Oliver the chance to talk to all of you about how Rounded works and get a bit more insight into whether or not it's going to be the right tool for you. So I'll hand over to you, Oliver.
Thanks, Monica, and to everybody on the call today for giving up your time to come and listen. As Monica said, this is a relationship with Creative Plus Business that has been born out of us having a huge number of creatives as clients and just being able to add value to each other. So there's nothing more than that. I'm totally comfortable with where Rounded is, and if it works for you, great. It may not. It doesn't work for everybody. That's totally fine also. So my name's Oliver. I'm one of the co-founders and currently the COO of Rounded. We've been around for about 4 years, focusing predominantly on Australia to start with. We've now got customers in New Zealand as well, which is great. And our sole focus is cloud accounting for Aussie freelancers and sole traders. So, that's our niche. That's what we specialize in, and that's what makes Rounded different. Now, today, we're going to start with a couple of polls. I'm interested to find out where you guys are at in terms of your knowledge of cloud accounting and understanding of Rounded. That's going to help me understand where to focus today. We'll start with a couple of slides. I've tried to keep it as light as possible, and there will be a live demo as well. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So there is a Q&A module. If you're familiar with Zoom, there is the chat module there as well, which you can use. This is also being recorded, and in a couple of days, I'll share that recording with Monica, and she'll be able to send that back to you if there's things that you want to revisit or review. In terms of polls, I'm launched the first one, which hopefully you guys can all see. Now, can you see that? So if you could just click on the answer that is most relevant to you, just so that I can understand where the audience is. Okay, good. Well, it looks like none of you have ever seen Rounded before, which is great. And can I go straight to the other one? I'll just end that. A few more seconds if you haven't voted, if you just want to pop a vote in. Otherwise, that's fine. And the second poll, which is generally just about what are you using at the moment? Are you using anything for cloud accounting? Are you using another platform? Are you looking for something else? Are you manual processes? Where are you at? Okay, awesome. So good. So it looks like most of you are manual. Some of you are using something else, but perhaps looking for a more suitable solution. So thank you very much for sharing that. As I say, please do ask questions at any time, and I'm happy to answer them. So in terms of what we're going to look at today, very quickly, because we do have a number of people who are using manual processes, I will go quickly through what a cloud solution is. We'll talk about how to choose the best platform for your needs, and I'll also give you a few tips and tricks to help you manage your initial conversations with cloud providers, and also how to get the best out of your free trial and to squeeze everything you can after that. And then we'll look through the three main benefits of cloud accounting, so invoicing, expenses, and insights. At the end, I will share with you the free trial link that Creative Plus Business has that will give you a 30-day completely free, obligation-free trial. And no doubt Monica will be able to follow up with you with that link as well, but I'll put it in chat. And Therese says she's had to leave, but no worries, we'll send you the recording. So essentially, cloud accounting, it's not that difficult. The cloud is just someone else's computer, typically owned by Amazon or Google these days. Rounded sits on, various bits on the Rounded app sit in different cloud servers, but it's just a way through the internet, through internet connected to the browser, for you to access another server, and really it's somewhere else for you to store your information. Now, the benefits of cloud accounting for you guys are that it's very cost effective. So, you don't need to have huge, great, big, expensive computers of your own to access cloud accounting. Therefore, it's also, should be, economical, and good cloud accounting solutions will also include, your subscription will include upgrades, security, backup, disaster recovery, all of the things that come with managing a tool like that. So it's a really cost-effective way for you to gain access to some very, very powerful tools. Most cloud, or you might hear the phrase SaaS, software as a service providers, are of course subscription-based, which means that you'll pay a monthly or an annual fee to continue to access that solution. We'll come back to pricing in a while, that subscription will contain, basically you'll pay for everything that you need to continue to run that. Essentially, what happens normally is if you stop paying your subscription, you're then unable to access your data or unable to access it within the app that you were using. So that's just a little bit about cloud accounting. So any questions about that, please let me know. So the difficult thing, if you haven't used a cloud solution before, is which one is right for me. If you think about cloud accounting apps, there are literally hundreds of them, around the world that you could use. But most of them focus on a particular niche. The good thing about cloud accounting is that most of them will give you a free trial. So you're able to try before you buy, which I would encourage you to do. In terms of which ones to try, that would be a case of getting recommendations from people in your network that you trust. There are many online groups of freelancers, I'm sure, as Monica and her team will be happy to give you a recommendation about not just Rounded, but a lot of others. And I would encourage you to pick the 2 or 3 that maybe resonate with you the most, and to sign up for a free trial and have a play around. It's not only about how easy it is to use, it's also about the relationship that you build up with the provider. How you've got to understand things like how quickly do they respond to your queries. That's a really important thing. What resources do they have to allow you to train yourself up to use the tool that they've built? To the point where, how intuitive is it? We all know we can pick up a smartphone, an iPhone, and even a tiny child knows exactly what to do without a manual. It's the same with cloud accounting. Take the time to understand pricing structure. So, are you getting, a restricted trial during the free trial? or are you getting the full power of what the app can do? What kind of restrictions do they have on different tiers? So it may be that you can get, an entry level subscription for a couple of bucks a month. But if you've got, hundreds of clients and they say, well, in this thing, you can only have 5, it might not be right for you. Because if you then go up to needing hundreds of clients, it then costs you $150 a month. So all cloud providers will have different structures and different barriers around different tiers and different levels of payment that it's really important to understand. Also consider advice carefully from your accountant. Now, the reason I say this is not because accountants won't give you the right advice, but often accountants will give you, quite subjective advice based on their own business. So you might find that many accountants are aligned to one particular provider, Xero, MyUp, QuickBooks, whatever it might be. And that's because they run their entire business using that platform, and they may have hundreds and hundreds of clients using that platform. And again, not to say that that's a bad thing, but if they're recommending, look, we use this platform, that's fine for them. And you can understand why they want to keep everything consolidated and on one platform, but be aware that that platform may not be the best for you. It may not be the right solution. It may be the solution that suits your accountant. And again, not to say that all accountants are like that, but just to be wary that it's good to understand where your accountants come from. Finally, going back to the top, most cloud providers will give you a free trial. As you come to the end of that free trial, don't be scared of politely asking them to extend it if you feel that you need to. And I'm coming as the owner of a cloud solution. We will do that all the time if it's the difference between thinking that it's going to give that person, the peace of mind they need to make a decision to come with us. So being polite with them, asking them to extend your free trial often works. The other thing is that often there's coupons floating around. Always worth asking in a Facebook group or whatever for freelancers if anybody has a coupon for a discount, anything like that. You never know. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So as long as you're, managing that whole process with respect, you'll find that most cloud providers are happy to give you, initial special offers and, that kind of thing to help you feel more comfortable in committing to a paid subscription. So just a couple of tips there around, how to decide what's best for you. Again,
Oliver,
yeah.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I just want to really mirror that conversation about the accountants. We have lots of our clients who are really forced to use a particular accounting system because their accountant has suggested it or their accountant insists on it. And it is really important to make sure that you find a system that works for you, because obviously your accountant is there to give you advice, and that's what accountants are great at, and that's what they're there for. But in terms of where most people are at, the day-to-day management of your accounts and your books and, sending invoices and chasing up payments and that sort of thing, that has to be something that you feel comfortable using, not something that your accountant would prefer. And if there are issues there, feel free to go and talk to other accountants and start, looking around and seeing if there might be somebody else who can help you. It's a scary thing to think about, but really your accountant works for you. They are there in service to you to help you to meet your financial and tax responsibilities in the best way possible. And if you are curious about where to go to find alternatives, we have a page on our website called The Groovy Accountants, which I will put into the chat. If you do a Google search on Groovy Accountants, you'll find it straight away. And that gives you a whole lot of links to accountants who specialize in creative industry. And you can just call them and talk to them about the cloud systems that they use or prefer, and find out if they're agnostic in terms of which ones they work with.
Yeah, and I think that the other way to look at it is, what makes Rounded unique is that we're the only Australian provider that focuses completely on freelancers and sole traders. That to us means we're not suitable for small businesses, if you've got employees and things like that. Accountants are just the same. If you've got an accountant whose business is dealing with small businesses, their regulatory reporting and accounting requirements are completely different to those of a sole trader. So they may not be specialists in the kind of advice that you need to grow your freelance business. So it might be worth your while trying to find somebody who is. And again, that's not to say anything bad about any of the accountants out there. Just again, it's more about you having a broader perspective on the people that you're getting advice from. So that's that. So we'll move on from there. So in terms of what you're going to get from cloud accounting, first of all is invoicing, and often it can be, and you may not think about this, but a professional invoice is one of the most important documents that you will ever send. You've done a huge amount to build your business, build your brand, pitch a client, win that business, and deliver really high quality work. The first thing is that your invoices should reflect the quality of your work, and you should be able to demonstrate that you take care of your own business to the same level that you take care of your client's business. So keeping your invoices looking professional and consistent. Secondly is more about your time and stress. And we begin to talk a little bit about automation. So, rather than, there are many of you on the call who are doing things manually because you want to save time and money. Sorry, you want to save money. Everything that you do on a spreadsheet needs to be done by you manually. And if you forget, especially as your business grows, that's going to increase stress. And it's, going to mean that things go unchased and unchecked. And we see many clients come to us from a manual process who really have no idea where their business is at. And especially at the moment, every end of financial year, we see, hundreds and hundreds of freelancers come to us in a panic because they're trying to get their end of financial year sorted for their tax and they really don't know where to start. So again, you talk about automation, you talk about time, and you just talk about compliance. Cash flow, late payments, low payments is a big enough issue for freelancers as it is. I know Monica's going to be talking about that in a couple of weeks on a webinar. So adding to that by having processes that don't support being efficient is really counterproductive to your business. The last thing is then being able to do things like offer credit card payments, which is something that more and more freelancers do. If you can get 98% of an invoice paid in 3 days rather than 100% of an invoice paid in 6 weeks because your client's happy to pay by credit card, then why wouldn't you consider that as an option? So these are the kind of things that cloud accounting begin to have you to be able to do. The one thing I will say as well is for you guys to, if any of you, and I know, are saying, well, I'm using manual processes because my business is new and I really don't want to be spending money on, I want to keep things as tight as possible. I would ask you to perhaps keep a note, even a mental note, of the time that it takes you to do your business admin on a monthly basis. And as your business grows, how that increases. Because if you take your standard hourly rate and work out the time cost of doing your administration, I would venture to suggest for most of you that what that costs you by an hourly rate would more than pay for, as far as Round is concerned, sort of the average of $20 a month to pay for cloud accounting software to save you, 50%, 80%, whatever the amount of time is that you're spending on your business admin, not to mention the stress. So secondly,
I 100% agree, by the way. I just want to give you a cheer for that because, again, there's just so many, it feels like the right thing to do to take care of all this stuff yourself, but actually your time is so much better spent, working on your business, working on your practice, trying to find new clients, all that kind of stuff that only you can do if you can pay a small amount of money to get someone else or a cloud version of it to support you. It's definitely worthwhile.
Absolutely. And again, if you think about the time of year that we're in, if you're presenting your accountant, of course, it's not just cloud accounting software. Many of you will have an accountant as well. But if you're presenting your accountant with a shoebox full of receipts and a spreadsheet versus secure access to your beautifully presented and structured data, you can easily do the calculation on, how many more hours it's going to take your accountant to process your tax return if they're sifting through boxes and manual receipts and that kind of thing versus, versus being able to see everything neatly done there with reports and everything else that they need. So the second aspect of cloud accounting is managing your expenses. Rounded offers mobile apps that allow you to capture receipts there and then, that allow you to connect your bank accounts and create expense records on the go, capture receipts. So everything happens quickly, and reducing the risk of things falling through the gaps. Obviously every legitimate business expense that you have reduces your taxable income. And if you're not managing your expenses properly, every receipt that goes uncaptured or not captured to the right proportion is money that you might as well just take out of, you might as well just set fire to $20 notes, because it literally comes straight off your bottom line. And again, spending, it can be hours and hours. We see people spending trying to sort out receipts that they just chuck in a box when it comes to doing their GST returns, quarterly BAS, and especially at this time of year when it comes to tax. And finally, compliance. Normally, if the ATO are going to audit you, it's because they've got issues with the expenses that you've captured. So not having to worry about compliance, having everything in one place, having all your receipts captured will reduce your stress, that if the ATO ever knock on your door, you can instantly show them anything they want to see, which is going to, again, make their life easier and make them view you in a much more positive light, rather than, having everything all over the place. If you can demonstrate, if you ever get audited, to the ATO that you are on top of these things, it's going to really reflect well on you. So, it's hugely important to manage your expenses properly, and that's, one of the things that a good cloud accounting app will enable you to do. So again, just before I go on, guys, if you've got any questions at all, please pop them into chat. Happy to answer those, or in the Q&A module. Completely up to you. And finally, data and insights. So again, most good accounting apps, I know that Rounded does, will give you a dashboard. The dashboard is generally real time. And it takes the raw data in terms of income, in terms of expenses, and that kind of thing, and it shares with you how your business is actually doing. It allows you to set goals. It allows you to compare year on year. It allows you to do those things that mean that you can know, am I eligible for government assistance? That's been huge recently. Amongst the freelance and sole trader community, is that people have needed access to their accounting data to be able to work out if they're eligible for job seeker or job keeper. Again, it gives you an understanding of how am I going, compared to this time last year. Have I actually grown my business? And of course, little things like the income tax calculator. In Rounded, every time that you enter an expense or every time that you enter some income, it will show you a rolling cumulative figure of your tax liability for that year. Of course, it's only an estimate, and you can only get the real amount from the ATO. But it's just one of those things that means that information is all at your fingertips, and you don't have to guess, and you don't have to hope, and you don't have to spend 3 hours crunching spreadsheets from everywhere from this year and last year to get that basic information that you know. So again, it's going to help you make informed decisions about where you're spending your time, which aspects of your business are profitable, which aspects of your business aren't, and how you're going with the business as a whole. So there's this huge benefit to that, just from a data and insights point of view. So that's I guess the main overview of Rounded. I wanted to come out of PowerPoint mode for now. And what we'll do is we'll jump into Rounded, and we'll have a look at the tool itself. So, guys, again, I'm encouraging questions. This is sort of one of those that I can talk about Rounded until the sun goes down. There's plenty to talk about, but what will make this much more valuable to you as we begin is for you guys to ask me questions about how does it do this, can Rounded do this, and I can focus on answers to those. That's going to help you out and be more valuable to you. So I will just share my screen again. Can you guys all see that? Yep, awesome. So this is a typical Rounded dashboard. This is obviously the desktop. You can access this via any browser on any laptop that's connected to the internet. We recommend Chrome or Firefox or one of the more up-to-date browsers. We still get the odd person that uses Internet Explorer, which even Microsoft don't support anymore. So if you are using Internet Explorer, please do get rid of it as quickly as you can and upgrade to something that is more up-to-date and more secure. So on the Rounded dashboard, all of this information comes from the income and the expenses that you enter into Rounded. And this is real time. So you can see that you've got the income and expenses graph that will show you comparisons of this year versus last year. Of course, guys, I will just add that this is a dummy account, so the data is a bit all over the place, but hopefully it will give you a sense. So really easy ways to sort of see, okay, well, I can see where I am in the last 12 months. I can see where I am for this financial year. And you can see even here it says now, compared to this time last financial year, from an income perspective, I'm up 15%. So you know where you're at. You can change that to expenses, and you can see, all right, well, my expenses are down 82%. So, I've increased my income, I've reduced my expenses, happy days, your profit margin is going to be increased. And, you can set that to both as well. So just easy to see. It's not difficult. When you look at incoming money, this shows you the status of all invoices that you have that are not marked as paid. So you can see this is what's outstanding, this is what's overdue, this is what's in draft. You've got some unbilled time and the total incoming income that you've got to look forward to. And finally, this financial year will show you your income exclusive of GST. If you are registered for BAS, if you're not, it will just show you your total income, what your expenses are. So income minus expenses shows you taxable income. And from there, we give you an estimate of tax payable. And it is only an estimate. Again, you'll have to talk to your accountant and the ATO to give you the actual amount at the end of the year. But this is a great way for you to be able to keep an eye on how you're going for the year. You've got a goals section. You can see, which clients are most profitable, which expenses are, where you're spending your money. Quick links to invoices, and we'll look at invoices in a bit more detail in a sec. So just checking. All right, no questions as yet on the dashboard. Anybody want to ask any questions about the dashboard before we move on? Cool. All right, no worries. We can come back to that at any time. So going back to the points I was making before, when you go to the invoices section, again, you can see invoices by date first and foremost, but also by status. Probably one thing I haven't mentioned is Rounded is a cash accounting system only. I'm not going to go too deeply into the differences between cash and accrual accounting, but as a freelancer, cash accounting is what you should be using. And all that means, very simply, is you log the income when the income is earned, and you log the expense when the expense is incurred. So there's not having to worry about spreading things over months or a year. It's very much when a client pays an invoice, you log the income. When you incur an expense, you log the expense. So you can see your draft invoices, you can see outstanding invoices. Invoices have already been sent to a client. So again, from a point of view of this versus a spreadsheet, it will show you when invoices are due, when invoices are overdue, and we have a neat little feature that allows you to send automated reminders to your customers when invoices go overdue. That's obviously configurable depending on the client, depending on the invoice. You might also have noticed that we have invoices here appearing in foreign currencies. So there's a couple of invoices here in US dollars, one here for New Zealand dollars. So perfectly easy for you to invoice overseas customers in foreign currencies. There's thousands of them that you can use. And then, of course, you can see paid invoices too. Now, we also have a nice feature at the moment. This is called estimates, but depending on the industry that you're in, it might be called a proposal, it might be called a quote. We've got a nice little feature in settings that allows you to choose whether you're sending estimates, quotes, or proposals, and that will appear if you open up a quote, that will appear in the top right. So that just changes the terminology there. And we tend to try and like to use very easy terminology. So, going back to invoices, a more traditional accounting platform might talk about a debtor's ledger. We just tell you you've got a list of overdue invoices. It's kind of the same thing. A more traditional accounting app might talk to you about a chart of accounts. We just talk to you about an expense report because that's what it is. So we try and use very unintimidating language as well as a nice design to help you guys feel much more comfortable using the app. So again, for those of you that send estimates or quotes, you can send those and your clients can accept those online. And once a quote has been accepted, you can go back into the quote or the estimate and convert that to an invoice, and all of the information from the quote automatically gets copied across to the invoice, and you then have a draft invoice with all the information from the quote. Now, one of the most important things is bank feeds. So you are able to connect your bank account in Rounded. It doesn't take very long, and as you can see, we've got access to 170 or so. I did this similar presentation for another group called the VA Institute recently, and that was actually just before COVID. And we spent half an hour with them shouting names of banks at me, and I was typing them in to see whether or not they could catch me out, and we got pretty much all of them. So I don't have a way to show you how this works at the moment because it would mean showing you my actual bank account, which I'm not going to do. But essentially, this digitizes your bank statement and allows you to see, all of the transactions that you would see in your internet banking within Rounded. Again, it's very, very secure. It's read-only, so there's no way that anybody can initiate any kind of transfer or payment from within Rounded. Rounded as an app doesn't store your login details. I'm happy to go into that offline if anybody's interested in the security around it. But essentially, you choose your bank, you choose to connect, and you sign in the same way as you would with your internet banking. And your statements are there, and you're able to use the transactions in the bank feed section to create income. So assigning payments to invoices and obviously creating expense records, all of which go into your dashboard.
Oliver, can I just ask a quick question? On the off chance that one of the banks isn't there, is it a reasonably easy process to make that connection happen?
Well, we use a third party to provide that, so it's not something we have direct control over. So the banks that aren't there at the moment would be things like Upbank, which is one of the new neobanks at the moment. Now, Up is mobile only. Our bank feed connection requires the bank to have a browser-based login. So we can't connect to Up. It's not technically possible, and also because they don't have the technical socket that we can plug into as well without going into too much detail. So there are a couple, but generally what happens is, you can either, depending on the volume of transactions that you have, you can either manually create an expense or an income record, and attach that to an invoice. Or if you can export from your bank of choice to a CSV file, we can show you how to bulk upload transactions all at once. So there are other ways of doing it, as opposed to just connecting a bank account. So with expenses, again, super easy. You have the ability to be able to create an expense with the cost, the date, and the business use percentage. So this is really cool if, say, like you've got a mobile phone and you only want to claim 50%. You can put the whole amount in, put the percentage use in, and only 50% of it will be added to your expenses and taken off your taxable income. If you track GST, then you can include that, and if it's a GST related expense, of course, it will be added to your BAS, and I'll show you the activity statement in a sec. You can create multiple categories, custom categories to categorize expenses, and multiple vendors. A vendor is just where you've paid, where you've spent the money. And then obviously the description. And it's all nicely color coded, so it's sort of nice on the eye. And easy to see by date. And also when you attach your receipt. Now, I always hold my breath when I click these, because generally I'm playing around with this when I'm lying on my couch and doing phone support on my phone, and I'm testing, I couldn't upload a receipt. So apologies for the rather dodgy receipt photo. But you can see, obviously you can see the receipts. That's what it would look like if, you attached a receipt. So yeah, any questions on expenses? It's all, hoping that you guys are finding this all refreshingly simple. We're not trying to make it overly complex. Any questions on expenses or quotes or anything else that I've spoken about before we carry on, or bank feeds? All right, cool. We'll move on, but happy to come back. Now, income records. Income can be added. Income records and invoices are two totally different things. Hopefully that makes sense. The invoice is the vehicle upon which you share information with your client about the products or services that you've provided and what the associated costs are. The income record is assigned to an invoice, which is the method of capturing the income generated by the invoice. Hopefully that's a succinct way of describing it. But you don't need to have an invoice to be able to add income, as you can see up there. So we have quite a few clients who, for instance, may have a freelance business where they use the invoicing aspect, but they also have an Airbnb, or they might do some Uber driving. And of course, that's a business activity that goes through the same ABN, but doesn't require you to send an invoice. You just need to capture that income. So you can, again, add income from the bank feed without attaching it to an invoice. And you can add income from the income section just by clicking add income. And you can see the very similar sort of user experience there with the panel sliding out from the right. You add the income. Do you want to include GST? Do you want to attach it to an invoice? Is it assigned to a client, or is it standalone? So super easy to capture. And of course, what you are also able to do is to create different income categories. So if there are different aspects to your business that you want to be able to differentiate between money earned on activity A versus money earned on activity B, you can create as many custom categories as you need. So that's income. Clients. So the client file, this is where you keep all your client information. We're in the middle of a complete rebuild and overhaul of this, so it is about to become a heap better. But you can obviously enter a client name. Are they an individual or a company? Do you need to have multiple contacts? And also you can see what's outstanding and what's been invoiced. And there's also this nice feature here called statements. which allows you to, especially at this time of year, generate a client statement, which you can see based on time or based on, so you can see invoices and payments for the month, for the quarter, whatever it may be. And a really easy way for you to be able to send your clients a statement of account and create that nice and easily. The timer, so as for creatives, we have a lot of creatives that use this. Now, I guess, in the interest of transparency, you'll find Rounded pretty transparent. This is a fairly light version of a timer. It doesn't have the depth of functionality and features that something like a toggle or a harvest may have if you're familiar with using those. But essentially what it allows you to do is to create projects for clients, to capture time that's either billable or non-billable for your own records, to create entries that can be added directly to an invoice, and to sort of budget your time against a client budget. And of course you get a graph here that shows you on a day-to-day basis the work that you've done. So yeah, you can start it, stop it, pause it, carry it on, select a project, and you can see that it creates line items. That's a non-billable one. If you can pause it if you answer the phone, and then you can start again, and it will add another entry for you. You can all sorts of settings. I won't go into the detail, but consolidate lots of items into one, it's quite a neat little integrated feature. Finally then, with reports, the main one is activity statements. So for those of you who have to do a BAS quarterly, this is where Rounded really comes into its own, because there aren't many, certainly no freelance apps out there that manage GST natively. So what will happen is that for any BAS quarter at any time where you have income or expense data in Rounded that contains GST, one of these BAS lines will be created. And so at the end of the quarter, you can click on it and it will show you the G1, the 1A and the 1B. So total sales, GST on sales, GST on purchases. And from there, it will show you your BAS position. And essentially these three numbers are the three numbers that you need to log into the business portal and submit your quarterly BAS. So Rounded is going to do all of that work for you. Obviously, it can only calculate based on the information that you enter. So of course, again, depending on your level of comfort with this kind of thing, you may need your accountant to check your numbers to verify that you've captured all your expenses, they've been apportioned correctly, that you've got all the income in the right quarter. But assuming that everything's correct, that's what you need to go in and do your BAS. So we have many customers who now won't use their accountant for quarterly BAS because they're proficient enough to know that they've done their accounting correctly, and they've got the accountant's not really adding any value because Rounded does all the work for you. So that's the activity statement. Then we've got the timesheet report. Again, there's not much data in here. I probably should have filled it in. But you can see the line item for 10 seconds I just created before. Again, you might want to send an invoice to a client with quite a consolidated view of all of the work that you've done, maybe one line item, but you might want to augment that with the timesheet report so that if the client wants to search through all the work that you've done, when you've done work, for how long, and how that filters into the end invoice that you've sent, you can attach a PDF of a timesheet report for them. Income. So then we've got expenses report. Again, you can filter that by category or client, so you can see what your expenses are and see everything broken down by category. You can see again here things like, here's the expense record that we just modified when we were in the expense section. Even though we added an expense for $80, you can see that I added 50% So only $40 or 50% of it has been added to the expense record. So all of that's been apportioned beautifully. So it's all very nice and easy to see. And also where you've added a receipt, the receipts will also appear there for you to see. And of course, you've got the ability at the top to be able to change through different time periods, and if you want to add custom dates, you can do that. You can then download a CSV or a PDF if required. The income report is exactly the same. So income broken down by client. Where an income record has been attached to an invoice, you've got the links to be able to see that invoice too, and you can filter income by category or by client as well. So again, you might have consulting services and then Airbnb or whatever it is, so you can see how much you've earned on each different income segment, and finally the profit and loss. And this is just where you are for the year, or again for whichever time period you choose. Your ability to be able to see, well, how profitable have I been? You can see, well, here's all my income and broken out into income categories in terms of how I've earned it. Here are all my expenses, and here's my profit. And obviously your profit then, this is pre-tax. So this is also your, taxable income. So that would be, that's the income that that you're going to be paying tax on. So that's sort of a very quick rundown. I'll show you a couple of other things in settings, a couple of nice, neat features. But just pausing again, are there any questions from anyone, or anything I can answer or show you? Any views? Do you like what you see? Is there anything you've seen that would be missing, or that would be a game, a showstopper for you? Happy to have all feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. It's all important for us and valuable, and helps us learn. Thanks, Wendy. So finally, just a few settings, just to show you a few of the things that you can do. So we've got a full suite of smart notifications, so that you can get email notifications when certain things happen. You can see these activities listed, and it's as easy as toggling on and toggling off. You can have that. If you're using the mobile app, there's also a section in the mobile app notification settings for push notifications as well. Obviously, doesn't work on a desktop, but if you use your mobile phone and you want a push notification when an invoice has been paid, or when a client views an invoice, you can set that up. So very easy to use. Accountant access. This is a really good one. So again, gone is the day of needing to manually handle data, of needing to take a risk on security by giving your accountant your username and password to access. You can pop their address in here, and you can give them secure, seamless access to your data. And there's a number of different settings that you can choose around what they can and they can't do, whether it's read only, or whether they can edit stuff, whether they can see your bank feeds. Again, I won't dwell too much on this. We have documentation about this that we can give you if it's something that you're interested in. Time zone is pretty self-explanatory. So email settings. We have a default method, which is all invoices are sent from roundedmail@rounded.io, which works perfectly well. But if you have a Gmail or a G Suite account, you can connect that. And what that means is that you can send emails and invoices and that kind of thing from your own email. So you can easily connect a G Suite account. In the back end here, we've got templates for every single outgoing message, and you can see these green pills here. They're merge tags, so you can quite a nice features for you to be able to customize your invoices depending on the client. We've got those for quotes, we've got those for reminders, whether that's a manual or an or automated reminder. We've got that for receipts, client statements, and there's also a nice auto signature feature here where you can add a logo, which is dead easy. You can add links to your social feed. You can format the text, add hyperlinks, that kind of thing as well. So we've got a number of different options around invoice numbers. So if you're coming into Rounded with, a previous format and cadence around numbers, and you want to start from 257, you can start from 257. You can add a client prefix. Here's what we were talking about before between renaming estimate, quotes, or proposals. Options around displaying time-tracked items on invoices and a footer template for your invoice. Payment terms, which can be, all of this can be changed on an invoice by invoice level. Due dates, bank details, and of course, allowing the option for your clients to pay your invoices by either PayPal or Stripe. Important to note that we do not charge for that. So there's no charge to Rounded users for using that service. But Stripe and PayPal, of course, are third-party organizations. They have their own charges, which comes out of your end. So at the moment, there's no way to seamlessly uncharge Stripe payments or PayPal payments. They come out of your end. But the beautiful thing is if you send an invoice by Stripe or your client pays by Stripe, the invoice will be marked as paid automatically. And say you send out an invoice for $1,000, and the client pays $1,000, but Stripe takes their clip and only transfers you $998. Rounded will also create, not only mark the invoice as paid, but create automatically an expense record for the fee. So all of your figures balance. And of course, Stripe fees are a legitimate business expense. They're a cost of doing business. And so you should be claiming them. All of that happens automatically. Same with PayPal. Finally, the import section. So you can import clients from Xero, from Harvest. If you use FreshBooks, we can do that even more automated fashion. If you're using Wave, we can help you. So with all of this, my team is on hand. And as part of your free trial, we'll be there to assist you to bring any electronic data over. If you're using a manual cash book, we're not going to be doing data entry, but if you've got a spreadsheet or if you can export data from a previous platform, we'll get it in for you as part of your trial, so that you can see what it all looks like prior to making a final decision as to whether Rounded's for you.